Hi, I'm Brian Maddox. I'm the host of Mason's Work podcast. I'm really excited to introduce you today to Kelly Mahler. Welcome, Kelly, to the podcast.
Hi, Brian. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited about this.
I can't tell you what a just profound moment it was for me. And you weren't there. This was asynchronous. While I was busy doing research for the book I'm working on, to stumble across your website and go, aha, that's it. That's the thing I've been describing kind of around for, the vast majority of this book, and you work at the heart of it. So let me ask the thousand, dollar question, $1 million question, whatever. What is interoception?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's not something that most people know about. So if this word is new to your listeners, never fear. But interoception is the newest sense that's being studied by scientists. So what I mean by that is like traditionally we kind of talk about how we have five senses. What many people don't know is that over the past few decades, scientists have also talked about that we have two more senses. So we have the five senses of smell, sight, sound, touch, and taste. You know, most of us are familiar with that. Then we have these two other senses called proprioception and vestibular, which scientists have been studying for decades. And interoception is the third kind of newest sense on the block. And so we're here to talk about this third sense called interoception. So the body has eight senses. So it's a fun party trick or question, or that you can you can quiz your friends on how many senses do we have. But anyways, this eighth sense called interoception is so helpful. Its main job is to help us know how our body feels. So, if anyone out there listening has ever had a sensation in their body, that's going to be different for all of us. So, maybe you've noticed like your heart racing, or maybe like your head is pounding, or you have you feel tension in your like neck muscles, or your skin is sweaty. All of these body sensations are possible because of interoception. So, interoception, its main job, how it's defined by scientists, is our sense of how our body feels, or what is the condition of our body. So, like, what is the condition of your stomach right now? How does your stomach feel? Like, does it feel empty? Does it feel full? Does it feel nauseous? Does it feel maybe gassy? There's so many possibilities, right? Sometimes people talk about like a butterfly sensation they have in their stomach. So there's so many different ways your stomach and all your other body parts can feel. And that is like interoception's main job, is to help us to know how our body feels. And I'm sure we're going to talk about why that's so important in a little bit of, really being able to notice these sensations and understand like what are these sensations telling me about my body? How's my body feeling?
And it doesn't stop with just the sort of, I guess, the straight mechanical signals, if you will. It also extends into the emotional space as well, correct?
Yeah, so interoception helps us to know like all of our like what emotion we're experiencing. So if you like really stop and think about this, for many people, like how do you know when you're anxious or nervous? Like a lot of people will, describe certain sensations coming from their body. And again, it's different for all of us. Like for me, anxiety feels like a tight chest, and like I feel like my head is like this like foggy feeling. But it's probably different for each of your listeners out there. But our emotions, which is so interesting because of this interoception science, what we're learning is that our emotions come from our body, which is very new because for a long time, for like 100 years, we were very stuck in the century of the brain and thoughts. And like we thought that our emotions come from the way that we perceive things, we think about things, they come from our brain. And all of that forgot about this entire thing below our eyebrows, this thing we call the body, right? Like
Right.
it's just a really important part of our emotional experience. So interoception is really kind of shifting the way we understand emotions.
And that kind of entire physiological intelligence that's embedded in the system itself. Um, I think we've alluded to this in the field in things like the theory of multiple intelligences, but that only sort of handles the processing side of that conversation, not the data input and recognition side, right? Is that an easy way to describe it or
Yeah, I mean,
inaccurate?
No, it makes sense. There's definitely multiple types of intelligence, and I think this body intelligence, are we able to be connected to our body? Are we even, first of all, slowing down enough to notice our interoceptive signals, let alone know what they mean and know how to take care of those sensations? So it is a very data-driven process and very complicated, but not complicated when we break it down in practical ways.
I mean, I think, I mean, to understanding this meaningfully, right? There's uh, philosophy and the world sort of wisdom traditions and major religions have been talking about this sort of functional understanding for a long time. This is really the fundamental sort of ground of know thyself, if you can imagine that sort of charge. When your work predominantly is with young adults and children, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So thank God the next generation's not going to have to figure this out. Like this is great. But for us old heads, that means that there's a very good chance that the social pressures that we've experienced have interfered in some ways with our connection to our own body. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that?
Yes, yes, yes. For time's sake, I'm going to overgeneralize here. This might not apply to every single person listening, but I bet you it's going to apply to most. That we tend to live in a society that conditions us to not listen to our body, to not notice those interoceptive sensations. We've even like there's popular quotes out there like no pain, no gain. That means like you ignore the pain that your body is sending you, or else you're not going to have gains. Like a lot of times our self-worth is dependent on how hard we can work and how tough we are and how much we're pushing through. A lot of times those messages our body is sending, like, how many people are working themselves to the point where they have a chronic health condition and then they talk about and they reflect back on their, younger days, like, oh my gosh, my body was telling me I needed to slow down, but, we're conditioned to ignore those messages, those sensations coming from our body. So we just are conditioned as a general society to ignore our body, that it's kind of weak to notice how your body feels. There's even like, if you think about this even deeper, on a deeper level, we're kind of conditioned to ignore the way our body feels to please other people from very young ages. I'm sure this probably hits pretty easily with a lot of the people listening. Or even like when I was younger, like just things that were so common, like you clean your plate, so that's just little tiny ways of overriding. We're not eating based on if our body feels hungry still or our body feels full. It was just like, don't listen to your body. You just do what you're told, kind of thing. And things are shifting, like you said. I think we have a long way to go. This new generation of younger kids are, hopefully becoming a little bit more empowered with this encouragement to like at least notice how your body feels a little bit. And it's not about being weak anymore. It's just about like understanding your body enough to know what it needs to do the hard stuff. So we're not necessarily ignoring like our body anymore. We're paying attention to it, or we're trying to help kids pay attention to it and understand what their body needs so that they can work hard, so that they can, do the tough stuff in life, but in a healthier way.
And when people deny access to that information, that sort of those signals, whatever those might be, um, in my experience personally, and I can speak to a sample size of one here, um, the needs don't go away. The data doesn't go away. It just subverts itself into other stuff that's much harder to find. Like I can't tell if I'm hungry anymore. So how do I go about understanding when I'm full and fixing that now is like just wading through cotton, it feels like.
Mhm.
Is that something that that the kids, that you've worked with in the past have kind of demonstrated? Is that something that the behavioral therapists and stuff like that would notice is these signals are not being honored and it's kind of squishing out in other sort of adverse behaviors?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we don't meet our body's needs don't go away. They're going to just scream in a different way. And that's going to look like maybe that looks like quote unquote challenging behavior as a young child. But as an adult, what does that look like? That can look like a lot of mental health struggles. That can look like a lot of physical health issues. Like there's even studies showing that people that are more connected and are more noticing their body sensations seek out medical care in a more timely way, like when it comes to like having a heart attack. Like these are like really serious topics to listen to your body. These sensations are there for a reason. And so living our lives, and I just want to say, like, I was also very disconnected from my body. So I don't, like, I just want to like be vulnerable and sharing that with your listeners. Like, so that has major health outcomes for many adults, whether that's mental health, physical health. So yes, your question, I kind of answered that in a long way, but your answer is yes. Like, we see this very frequently, that there's detrimental consequences to ignoring our body for so long.
So we kind of know what happens if you don't gain this awareness. What does it look like when you have this sort of agency and capacity? I've heard in conversation people say things like, that they say things that seem like they're so meaningfully grounded in a reality that I just can't fathom. If that makes any sense, it's just like your body says you're full. What? Like,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Or, I can't move that forward. I just, there's a lot of stuff that I just don't quite understand. And so when somebody has this correct, what is that kind of correct, if that makes sense?
Okay.
What does that look like?
I'm not sure we know the answer to that yet. I think there are, a lot of people like not I shouldn't say a lot of people. There are some people that have probably been on a very unique journey of like maybe I don't know, I'm just thinking like they have a practice in like mindfulness, right? And they're like very present, they're very in their bodies, they're very like taking lots of time to notice how their body feels. But because of the societal messaging that we've been talking about, there are a majority of humans that are, there's a range of how aware we are of our bodily sensations. So we all fall in that range. But I would say that, for a majority of people, we don't know what that looks like yet, what that full noticing our bodies, taking care of our bodies looks like because we still are living in the systems we're living in.
Yeah.
So even if you get this practice and you start like trying to like, I'm just going to be a little bit more present about my body, or I am going to just be a little bit more careful and giving myself permission to take care of when my body says like I need a rest, I'm going to go ahead and take a rest, or I'm going to eat a little bit slower so I'm paying attention more to how my body feels while I'm eating. Like whatever it is that your goal might be from an interoception standpoint, um, I think that's obviously an important goal, but we're still then going back into our daily lives where we're bombarded with these messages of don't listen to your body. It's weak to listen to your body, right? So I think we have, like I said, a while ago, like I think we have a long way to go in this evolution and understanding this science.
So, so there is no done, is what I'm hearing. It's not like you can
Uh-uh.
check the interoceptive box and be like, okay, well, got it all figured out, good to go.
I don't think so. Not yet, at least.
The the thing that stands out to me is when you hear professional athletes. A lot of professional athletes have this sort of kinesthesiological awareness of the mechanics of how their body operates, and it seems to be have a certain amount of subtlety to that understanding, knowing when something's a painful activity versus a stretch, which for some people that overlap, that Venn diagram's 100% overlap. For athletes, they seem to get the difference here with a lot of this stuff. Um, Apart from some of the audience here, which may or may not be in athlete shape, what are some ways that we might help cultivate that awareness in sort of daily practice?
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing with kids, but then we can switch it and transition this to what like, adults are doing. So what we're finding, and the reason I wanted to talk about the kids first is because we have a lot of research behind this and it's working like really well. So now we have adults trying it too, and it's working really well. So, what we're trying to do at first is practicing noticing how our body feels. But during times when we feel, we use this, we say regulated, which what does that mean? That just means like when you are not stressed out, because who wants to notice how your body feels when it's stressed out? Like when you're in a calm feeling like place, like, so you want to make sure your body is feeling like nice and regulated, calm. And then also we're doing fun, playful things to evoke stronger sensation to help kind of practice noticing. Because a lot of people tell us my body just feels numb, or, I'm going about my daily life and I'm trying to notice, but I'm not noticing anything. So, for example, like with kids, like some of the things we'll do experiments, like we'll hold ice packs or we'll squeeze slime or stress balls. And, that's evoking stronger sensation in the hands. And we give practice then in that moment, like, oh, how do your hands feel? Like, let's practice noticing. So it's like waiting till your body feels calm and regulated, and then also doing some things that evoke stronger sensation at first to help capture that attention to our body, to help give us practice noticing. And then that really spills over then to noticing more subtle sensations in daily lives. So what could that look like as an adult? There's lots of things that we're probably doing on a daily basis that might be evoking a stronger sensation. So like, I don't know if you go out for a daily walk, like maybe that's your time to start noticing and, how your body feels. And another thing I should have said with the kids, which is very helpful for a lot of adults too, is taking one body part at a time and just that's like, so for example, let's just say this week I want to pay more attention to how my hands feel. Or maybe next week I'm going to pay more attention to how my eyes feel or my heart feels. You pick one body part that tends to be not as overwhelming as I'm going to notice how my entire body feels. Like that might not feel like a big deal to some of your listeners, but other people are like, this is like a real shift for me. So pick one body part, wait till you're calm and regulated, wait till you're doing something that's evoking a stronger sensation, like going for a walk. Maybe you're at the gym, maybe it's in the shower, maybe it's when you're like, I don't know, washing dishes, like whatever it is, just pick one thing that like where you're kind of moving your body. It's probably evoking stronger sensations, and that's your time to practice. We're like exercising that practice, that noticing muscle, if you will, like just kind of getting us used to reconnecting to our body, starting to notice those sensations in our body. So that's like kind of where we start in all of this work.
And then from there, we have to be very, very careful, right? Not to judge any of it.
Yes. Yeah. Do you have more
Yeah.
to say? Because I have something to say about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I have plenty, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, well, so definitely not judging because you're gonna either probably notice maybe comfort or discomfort. Like anything your body tells you is important. And so and the other thing that I think is really important for us all to like understand is what is so interesting to me about all of this work is showing us just how different each of our body feels. So like what your body feels like when you're hungry is probably going to be different than me. What your body feels like when you're anxious, different than me. And so whatever you notice is right for you. Even if that's like, I don't know how my hands feel right now, or, I'm noticing something, but I just don't have a word for it. Like it's all like important information. There's no wrong way to feel. And I think that for a lot of us, at least for me as an adult, like I was, conditioned from a young child, like, in the educational system, like there is only like a one right way to feel. Like, so for example, what I mean by that is like we were taught, what does anxiety feel like? So anxiety should feel the same as everyone. Like it's when your heart races and your skin is sweaty, and that's not the way my body feels. So like we're really like undoing all of the should feels, and like whatever you notice is accurate. So like you said, like no judgment, like what you notice, what shows up, it is what it is for you. And there's no wrong way to experience your body.
And I think that becomes you have to be on your own team with a lot of this to right. So if you don't judge yourself, that's step one. Like make sure that
Mhm.
you're not beating yourself up for any of the things you feel for whatever they are. That does
Mhm.
not mean you have to take these feelings and try and immediately resolve them in a meaningful way or change them from what they are to something else. But when you can't be honest with yourself about the things that are happening, when you try and get into a community of practice like the work that we do as Masons, or like you would see in a Sangha kind of environment or a church where you might want to have those vulnerable and honest conversations, it's really important to take all of that at face value,
Mhm.
because I think you can't act on that data without essentially that integrity.
Yeah, that's right. And that can be like, let's acknowledge that can be some hard stuff, what you just said, right? Like to really have that shift, because so many, like I was talking about the should feels and we were taught how we should feel, but we were also, many of us were conditioned that it's not okay to be uncomfortable, right? Like we have to always be okay. And if we're uncomfortable, whether that's like an uncomfortable sensation or an uncomfortable emotion, an emotion that feels uncomfortable in our body, we need to hide that, or we need to, like, we need to, like, if we are expressing that uncomfortable feeling in our body, that's not safe. That's what we are kind of conditioned to, like, how many of us grew up. So, to be open and honest is a real journey, I feel, and to like see comfort and discomfort as equal important data sets is a real shift.
When those things arise in yourself and being honest and having the interception and the kind of intellectual and emotional integrity to just say, look, this is a thing that's happening.
Mhm.
It's, something I don't need to immediately try and make it go away. When you can do that for yourself, I think from there you can do it meaningfully for others. And it's really tough because a lot of us are like tuning forks, right? Where somebody's having an emotional response or a physiological response, and we internalize that ourselves. So we take on other people's stuff, and we want to make it go away in other people because it makes us uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's really hard to do this work on your own. It's even harder to do it in a group without trying to change the people in a group. Have,
Mhm.
I'm sure you see this in kids, like when somebody's upset, everyone rallies around to try and make the upset go away. They don't necessarily create space to understand the upset or any of that kind of stuff. They just are like, no, no, you need to stop this because I'm uncomfortable with how you're acting.
Yep. That's exactly right. That is why our educational system is rooted in behaviorism and not in this like deeply empathetic, like, why are you upset? Why are you having a hard time? We're just going to completely ignore your inner experience and we're going to put behavior strategies in place to make sure that you quote unquote behave, and that there's no internal curiosity within that approach at all. And that extends through us as adults for sure too.
And so and I guess you're probably not watching mature communities of practice develop amongst the children, uh, but in the communities of practice and the knowledgeable practitioners like yourself in this space, when a community of practice is working well, what does it look like?
Um, oof. I mean, that's a great question. I'm gonna think that it's gonna look different for each community of practice. And like you said, like let me talk about the kids because I think this might be relevant to adults maybe. But like I see people, like, so let's just say maybe could we consider a classroom a community of practice? What I see happening with
Absolutely.
this interoception work is I see kids starting to realize that the way they feel is valid, that and when we're so curious about our own selves as well as other people, a lot of the kids start to feel believed in their own experience. A lot of kids don't feel believed. Like they try to express like how their body is feeling when they're younger. Like maybe they're crying and someone's like, "Stop crying, get up off the floor." Like it's like shove your emotions down, don't feel your body. When they start to like do these, like we were talking about the experiments, and they're like, "Oh yeah, like my hands feel like icy right now," and someone's like, "Oh, cool, like thanks for telling me that." But then their neighbor says their hands feel numb. They're starting to see that there's no wrong way to feel. We're all validating each other's experience, but not in this like, "Oh, your feelings are so valid" kind of way. It's just like it is what it is in this work. It's just like we show how different each of our bodies are, and everyone, is believed and valid in their experience. We also see empathy growing just very naturally without having to teach empathy, because we start to see like, other people's bodies are different, and what someone else's like body needs in this moment is going to be different than mine. And how do we coexist, especially when those needs conflict? Like what maybe one kid needs music to pay attention, the other kid, the music is like, they're causing painful ears. And so it becomes this like lovely discussion about how do we meet each person's unique bodily needs.
So I can mentally project myself into the space of some people now who have endured horrifying things, And the natural next question is, so where does resilience fit in to a conversation about interoception? Where, how can we kind of maintain that balance of understanding the signals that we are getting and at the same time understanding that like the dog needs to get walked or whatever? Like how do we
Yeah.
persevere through those things without like suppressing them?
Yeah. Well, I think there's like this big conversation, or I don't know if it's a big conversation. People are starting to have this conversation, and I hear this all the time, like when we're talking about like, shifting from this place of like full compliance to helping people understand their bodies and move through life in a way that honors what their body needs. Like to a lot of people, they're like, oh, that's not going to work. The real world, you need to be tough. You need to have resilience. You need to be able to push through the hard stuff. You need to be able to bounce back. Like that stuff's not going to help kids. But what we're actually learning is that's exactly what you need to be resilient. You have to be able to notice your body, understand what your body needs so that you can keep bouncing back, that you can keep pushing through the hard stuff, but in a much healthier way where you don't have detrimental mental health and physical health consequences as an adult. You're moving through, it's exactly the same goal of being productive, of, achieving your goals, of being able to work hard, but in a way that is so much more balanced and in line with what your body needs. So I don't know if I 100% answered that question. Um,
So
but
I imagine at some point when you're working with the children, you do have to like help them sort of sit through some of the uncomfortable experiences that will require them to, I want to say ignore what they're feeling. Obviously, that's counter to the entire line of your work, but to sit with it at the same time, don't let that necessarily dominate behavior, right? It's one
yeah.
thing that your legs are feeling itchy and you want to get up and move around, but now's not the time for that. How do you walk folks through those kinds of sensations so that they build that resilience?
Yeah, well, we start talking about intensity of sensation and at what point in your intensity scale do you need to get up and move around. If it's a small itchy leg, then you could probably keep going, right? If it's a medium to big itchy leg feeling, then you probably need to get up and move around and then come back because you're going to be way more productive than trying to sit there and suppress your itchy leg feeling. And it's probably not going to go away that easily, and you're probably not going to do great work while you're trying to suppress that itchy leg feeling. So, we're talking about like intensity of like when can you keep pushing through, but when do you need to really stop and listen to your body really quick so that you can come back and do better work to be more resilient? Because resilience is only so good. Eventually, if you're defining resilience as your ability to keep pushing through and ignoring your body, like many of us, then that's not really resilience. And that's probably going to fail us at the end of the day, long term. So we're trying to build resilience, but in a different way.
And something I heard that was central to that approach was having a space where that's okay.
Hmm.
In the past, if a kid gets up and starts walking around the classroom, all eyes turned and discipline was strictly handed out
Hmm.
in horrifying ways.
Hmm.
When we talk about what this means for us, I mean, I think what's sort of counterintuitive is this is what we mean by like freedom. It's like these kids as they come up through with this understanding and being able to move around the room because that's what the body demands
Hmm.
is the freedom that we keep talking about trying to promote and all of that kind of stuff. And at the same time, we've got these structures that if they don't support that expression,
Yeah.
we're not honoring the individual and then they can't go on to deliver their best work because they get all this suppressed nonsense.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's a balance because is it really that big of a deal that they get up and walk around for a little bit? Like if they're following the classroom rules, they're not disturbing anyone. Like, like it's where we have to start to get kind of shift our like school used to be, like you said, it was so rigid. And that was mostly for the comfort of the adults. Like, let's face it, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't for the
absolutely.
comfort of the kids. We were, again, coming back to what we said earlier, like we were conditioned to ignore what our body needs to please other people. And that was the adults in the school building. And so there is this like, this definitely evolving process of not only helping kids to listen to their bodies, but shifting the systems that they're living in and expanding our definition of what it looks like to appropriately, quote unquote, appropriately learn in a classroom.
And when you add things like neurodivergence, that those systems are terrifying, I think, to the status quo in a lot of ways.
Yes, and I'm sure this probably would resonate with some of your listeners too. Like any of you out there listening, that just your body just didn't fit the mold that, our standard educational system, works. And I've talked to like so many adults that are so wildly successful and they're like ADHDers, so they had ADHD. They didn't know it growing up, but their body like needed to move, yet they weren't afforded that opportunity. And they really struggled, even though they were super bright, they were failing school because they just couldn't meet what their body needed, and they were trying to be fit into the system that didn't match what their, how their body worked. And so definitely that neurodivergence, like whether you're talking about ADHD or autism, or there's just so many different differences in brains now, and that we understand better. Definitely. I feel like that movement in understanding neurodiversity is really helping our systems to shift finally. And it's because a lot of adults have spoken out about their experiences as young kids in these systems that were so unaccommodating.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look across these large sort of moving swaths of society and just flatten the lot.
Hmm.
But in doing that, we deny the real genuine texture of the human experience. And I think what you're talking to with interoception as a sense and your ability to process that as a somebody who's trying to improve and get better as a person, I think you really are driving to the kinds of world that allows us to really maximize the human experience in a lot of ways to create better outcomes.
I hope so.
Kelly, I want to thank you so much for being on a podcast today. This was amazing. Um, Before we go, I want to ask a couple of quick things.
Okay.
First,
Mhm.
how can people get a hold of you if they need you? Because I have a good sense, obviously, that some of our audience here is probably not 6 years old looking at the video. YouTube would not approve of that algorithm use. But for the adult who's trying to get in touch with this themselves and in the process, learn these skills. I know I've benefited from the resources on your website, but how might you recommend folks get started, and how can they get hold of you?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like the website probably would be the best. So it's kelly-mahler.com. And I don't know if you have show notes to link that, but if anyone needs to know how to spell my last name, it's Mahler. So kelly-mahler.com. We have so many free resources on there, so you can watch more videos if you want to learn more about interoception. We have blog posts, like lots of free stuff. So you can learn more about that, or if this like resonates for maybe like a family member or friend, you can like share that website with them as well. And of course, we're on all social media. You can find those links on my website as well.
And so, other people that you might want to meet or would be of benefit to introduce to you, it sounds like you're developing your own curriculum for practitioners. I saw some of that on your website. So, for those of you paying attention at home, introductions to Kelly that might be of value to her would be people like that, that are working with kids and want to really strengthen that by having some excellent, powerful resources to solve those problems.
Yeah, thank you.
Kelly, thank you so much again.
Yeah, thanks. It's been fun, Brian.